The Lin family had two child brides, myself, and Mia Lee. On Eve Lewis's 25th birthday, Mia Lee tragically perished in an accident, whereupon I became the Lin family's daughter-in-law. After our marriage, my husband and I maintained a respectful and deeply affectionate bond. For him and the Lin family, I relinquished all I possessed, believing I would spend my days in tranquil happiness. Yet, in my 60th year, my husband unexpectedly proposed interring Mia Lee's ashes in the Lin family ancestral grave, thereby supplanting my rightful place. I was consumed by fury. I wept, I raged, I even cursed, yet my husband remained stubbornly resolute. To extinguish any lingering hope, he confessed he had already drafted a will, stipulating that upon his death, I would leave with nothing but the clothes on my back. When I discovered my 3 sons, nay, all our descendants, sided with him, I was consumed by such rage that I vomited blood and died a wretched death before his very eyes. Upon opening my eyes again, I found myself returned to the day the Lin family chose its daughter-in-law. Eve's father stood in the high hall, his expression solemn. "Eve, you are of age, it is time to make your decision. Speak, whom do you choose to be your wife?" Eve's mother smiled affably. "I wager my son will undoubtedly choose Winnie. He's been devoted to her since childhood. In both appearance and intellect, I far surpassed Mia Lee." All within the Lin family knew I was the preordained daughter-in-law. Yet, in this life, Eve Lewis cast a chilling glance my way, his eyes harboring profound aversion and animosity. I understood in an instant. He, too, had been reborn. "Since your heart remains captive to Mia Lee, I shall concede her to you." I stood proactively and declared, "Uncle Lin, Winnie is acutely aware of her lack of talent and unremarkable appearance, rendering her unworthy of Eve. Therefore, I relinquish my claim." Eve Lewis was visibly taken aback. A flicker of astonishment crossed his eyes, only to be replaced by his usual icy detachment. He said nothing, turning abruptly to leave the hall. I knew precisely his purpose. At this juncture, Mia Lee was yet unharmed, and all could still be averted. I remained standing, a rueful smile gracing my lips. The decades of marital devotion in my past life, it seemed, had been nothing more than a cruel illusion. "Winnie, what was that you said?" Eve's father's voice echoed from above. I lifted my gaze to meet his. This man, who once cherished me as his own daughter, now wore a mask of utter perplexity. I inhaled deeply, my voice so unnervingly calm it felt alien even to myself. "Uncle Lin, as Eve's heart is elsewhere, I relinquish my position as the chosen wife." Eve's father and mother exchanged uncertain glances. Given their son's resolute departure, they were at a loss for comforting words. I silently retreated to my room to pack, preparing for my departure. The following day, my social media feed was inundated with Eve Lewis and Mia Lee's official announcement. In the photographs, Mia Lee nestled in Eve Lewis' arms, her smile as radiant as the early summer sun. Eve Lewis held her waist tightly, his eyes overflowing with tenderness and affection. I swiped the notifications away, my face betraying no emotion. At noon, a commotion arose downstairs. I stood by the window, watching Eve Lewis intimately take Mia Lee's arm as they swaggered through the Lin family gate. Before long, a heated argument erupted from the study. Eve Lewis' voice was sharp. "Dad, I have already said, I choose Mia. Why is Winnie still the head designer?" Eve's father patiently explained. "Eve, Winnie has always been in charge of the jewelry sector. Suddenly changing personnel will impact the company's stock price." "I don't care," Eve Lewis interrupted. "I have decided that Mia is to be the daughter-in-law of the Lin family. Do you truly prefer to trust an outsider rather than your own son's choice?" The jewelry business has been Lin's group's primary focus in recent years. In my previous life, through my efforts, Lin's group soared to become the leading force in Y-City's jewelry industry, securing my position as head designer. Eve Lewis was well aware of this. Minutes later, the housekeeper led me to the study where Eve's father sat behind a large rosewood desk, appearing weary. He gestured for me to sit, his fingers drumming a dull rhythm on the desktop. "Winnie, there is something I must discuss with you." "Uncle Lin, there is no need to say more," I interrupted him, my voice so calm it felt foreign even to myself. "I understand." Eve's father lifted his head, a flicker of surprise giving way to profound remorse. For years, he held me in high regard, nurturing me as if I were his own daughter. But in the face of the present circumstances, Eve's father is powerless. He is nearing retirement, and someone must inherit the mantle of this family. Eve's father sighed deeply. "The jewelry business has always been under your purview. A sudden change would be most imprudent. But as you know, Eve's temper is more intractable even than my own." I nodded. "Uncle Lin, I understand." Withdrawing a prepared file bag and a jade bracelet from within my robes, I placed them gently upon the table. Contained within the bag are all current jewelry design materials and handover documents. Eve knows the password. Eve's father fixed his gaze upon the jade bracelet, his fingers trembling almost imperceptibly. This heirloom, passed down through generations of the Lin family, symbolizes the status of the Lin family's future daughter-in-law and is said to be of inestimable value. Since the age of 18, I have carried it with me, and it has become almost an extension of myself. In my previous life, it remained with me until the very precipice of death. Gazing upon my placid countenance, Eve's father hesitated, rendered speechless. I rose and offered him a bow. "Uncle Lin, I am eternally grateful for your care these past years. Winnie thanks you most sincerely." The study door was abruptly thrust open, and Eve Lewis entered with hasty strides, Mia Lee close behind. "Dad, is everything settled?" He spared me not a glance, proceeding directly to Eve father. Eve father nodded with resignation, sliding the documents and the jade bracelet towards him. "Winnie has already consented to the transfer." Before Eve Lewis could utter a word, Mia Lee had snatched the jade bracelet, her eyes betraying an unconcealable elation and triumph, a spectacle that elicited a slight frown from Eve father. "Wait," I interjected, prompting Eve Lewis to frown. "Winnie, surely you don't intend to renege?" I shook my head and withdrew a separate document from the file. Contained within are the core secrets of the jewelry project, including private agreements with key clients and the special terms afforded to crucial suppliers. Eve Lewis accepted the folder with suspicion, quickly scanning its contents, his brow furrowed with increasing concern. Improper handling of these details could result in substantial losses for the Lewis Corporation in the future. I stated calmly, "With Mia Lee's capabilities, that shouldn't pose a problem, should it?" A flicker of something uncharacteristic crossed Mia Lee's face, but it quickly reverted to her confident mien. She offered a brittle laugh, stating, "Your concerns are unfounded. I am well aware of my limitations. I will press the matter no further." Mia Lee, a mere junior college graduate, possesses no aptitude for design nor commercial enterprise. The jewelry business's prosperity stems solely from my inexhaustible design ingenuity and my meticulous navigation of client and vendor relations. Any less effort would have proved ruinous. "You are dismissed," Eve Lewis stated icily. "Henceforth, Lynn's group severs all ties with you." I began to turn away when Mia Lee's voice rang out, "Stay." A calculated arrogance aced her tone. I halted, though did not turn back. Now that Winnie has been rejected, she can no longer be considered a member of the Lynn family, correct? According to the rules, she should not remain within the Lynn family and ought to be leaving with nothing but the clothes on her back. "Eve, what is your opinion?" The air in the study solidified instantly. I turned slowly, my gaze passing over Mia Lee's triumphant face and landing directly on Eve Lewis. "Is this your wish?" He stood there, his expression shifting incessantly, his eyelashes trembled, his gaze began to wander, ultimately avoiding my gaze. Those few seconds of silence spoke more powerfully than any words. Eve father slammed his hand on the table, rising abruptly. "Nonsense. Winnie has been with the Lynn family for 20 years. Even if she is not a daughter-in-law, she is as good as family." "Dad," Eve Lewis finally interjected. "Mia is correct. Now that a decision has been made, we must ensure a complete sever." "Aunts." I regarded him and offered a sudden smile, the placid nature of which visibly unsettled Eve Lewis. "Uncle Lynn, as this is Eve's decision, I shall respect it." My gaze swept across each individual in the study, finally settling upon Eve Lewis. He averted his eyes almost instinctively, his fingers twisting nervously in the fabric of his sleeve. "Uncle Lynn, now that matters have reached this juncture, certain accounts must be settled." My voice, though soft, brought an abrupt silence to the study. I assumed control of the family jewelry business at 18, and it has been a full 5 years since. Mia Lee scoffed, but Eve Lewis silenced her with a glance. "In my first year, the jewelry I designed garnered a national award, yielding a turnover of 300 million and a net profit of 40 million. The second year saw an international award, with a turnover of 800 million and a net profit of 120 million. In the third, I spearheaded Lynn Jewelry's entry into the JH City market." I recounted each item meticulously, and with every figure I disclosed, Eve father's expression grew increasingly somber. "In summation, I have generated a net profit exceeding 2 billion for the Lynn family in these 5 years. Eve Lewis bit his lip. Of course, he knew what these numbers signified. In her previous life, it was these very projects that allowed the Lynn family to ascend to the ranks of Y-City's elite. The Lynn family nurtured me for 20 years, and I earned 2 billion for them. My voice remained even. "This debt, we consider it settled today. The Lynn family owes me nothing, and I owe them nothing. I am leaving with nothing but the clothes on my back, and from this moment forward, we are forever disentangled."